Okay, so my name's Olivia Thompson. I am 19 years old and I am a student at the George Washington University. I am from Italy, Brazil, and America. My dad is American, he's from Wisconsin, and my mom is Italian and Brazilian, but she grew up in Brazil most of her life. So I was born in Italy. So I've lived in Brasilia, I lived in Rome, London, DC, and between those places like a few times. So I've spent time in like 7 different schools, and I've moved, I think, 6 different times. So I spent a lot of time with my family growing up. They were the one constant thing in my life because everything else was always changing all the time, and we'd be moving and it'd be a different culture or every like 3.5 years or so. So the one thing that kind of stayed the same was my family. My adjustment to living in DC was really difficult. So my full freshman year was an adjustment period. And I say that about every move I've ever had. Like the first year or so in your new country, like the whole year is just spent adjusting. Like it's impossible to get a hang of things and get to know the people and get to know like how to act in less than a year, I think, which is why it's always been really difficult because we've never been in a place for more than 3 years. So by the time that you're adjusted, it's already time to leave. So being away from my friends and family is really difficult, especially because I did all of my high school in London. And the same year that I went to college, my family moved from London to Brussels. So when all my friends go home for winter break or summer break, they all go home to London, and I go home to Brussels. I keep in contact with my family, and I make sure to talk to them really often through, we use WhatsApp. So we FaceTime a lot. We have this tradition of writing letters once a month. And I think that's just a really personal touch, being able to kind of hold something that you know that they took a lot of time and effort into writing, and seeing their handwriting and seeing everything that's like so personal going into that really makes me feel more connected to them. The more I learn about nationality and like my classes at university, I realize how much of your sense of identity is surrounded in where you're from. Whether like you realize that or not, a lot of times it's subconscious. Like you pick up on the mannerisms of a place, you go to the same grocery store for your whole life, or like you have the route like from your home to school memorized when you're driving. And I never got to experience those like simple like everyday things like that are repetitive, or like growing up with the same people. Communicating via the phone is just not the same, which is why my family writes letters to each other. I got to experience a lot of things most people don't get to experience, and I think the act of moving in itself really teaches you how to kind of adapt really quickly to new situations and be really open-minded. Going through it versus looking back on it are 2 different feelings. So when I was going through it, I hated it. I hated every second of it. I would always complain about it to my parents, because my parents come from very, very, very humble backgrounds. So my dad grew up in one place his whole life. He was the son of a popcorn farmer in Wisconsin, in like rural Wisconsin. And my mom grew up in this like really, really, really poor town in Brazil, and her dad was a coal miner. So they grew up completely opposite of how I've grown up, and they had the experience of being in one place their whole lives and knowing the same people their whole lives, and like seeing that progression. Now I understand what they gave me is something that so few people have the privilege of experiencing. Portuguese has this word called saudade, and there's no English translation for that word. So saudade is kind of like this feeling of longing, or this feeling of missing something that is so close to you and so dear to your heart. And in English, the closest thing you can get to that is like, I miss you. So what would I call home? A lot of people can answer that really quickly. They'll just say like, I don't know, like Long Island, or like, I don't know, like Boston or something, I don't know. But a home is just really wherever my family is. There's a reason why home and house are different. Like your home is like it's like a feeling, right? A house is just like this place where you spend like your time like having your meals and sleeping and going to the bathroom or whatever. But that's why I feel comfortable saying like home is wherever my family is, because it's like this feeling of familiarity, and it's the only feeling of familiarity that I'll ever have.